It's me, Eggburt once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
John, we got a lot of ground to cover here because of the fact that I've been able to get all the stuff in, because John keeps talking all the time, and he loses his train of consciousness and goes on.
And at the beginning of B-Block, you were going to say something funny. I think I was going to be the butt of one of your jokes.
Okay.
And then I got you distracted with a sloped roof reference, and then it was off to the races. But you had something. I think I was the deserved butt of a coming joke.
Yesterday, if you listen to Armstrong and Getty, these guys are really good. I mean, they first off, they know what they're talking about, but they are funny as all get out.
Yeah, and they're also a good follow on Twitter. I follow them on Twitter, too.
Yes. Now, one of the insulting lines they threw out yesterday, I think it was Jack Armstrong threw this line out yesterday. How do you insult a woman? And
I have no idea.
You say, I'm sorry about that house that fell on your sister.
I don't get it.
You don't get it?
Oh, because of a witch.
Wizard of Oz. What happened?
I get it.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Second off, this morning, I'm listening to 97.1 before I come on our station. And who is on 97.1 with Mark Cox, the guy who I think has the world's best name, Bevis Schock.
Oh, yeah.
Now, do you know why they had Bevis Schock on?
Did it have to do with the earnings tax?
No, it had to do with the fact that he sued St. Louis City over the money they're giving away, and apparently he's won.
You mean the Rams money?
No. There's this money where they're giving money. What was it? They have 500 people they gave money to. Don't you know this story?
Oh yeah. This is like it's like a reparations thing, right?
Right. Well, it's not necessarily reparations.
It's some kind of they're handing out money, right?
Right, they're handing out money. He made the comment that apparently this case has been won in his favor, and he was against this happening to the point where he's essentially saying, look, this isn't fair. They're just giving money away, and he gave the example of, which is sort of funny. He gave the example, it would be like Tashara Jones just saying, hey, I'm just going to take people out to lunch or dinner on the city credit card, and nobody cares because of the fact that I'm the mayor and I can do whatever I want. He made a comment that if you are, apparently how they give this money out is they give it out, put it on a debit card, and he said that all I can tell is those people that have those debit cards, you better get to the store this morning because they're going to be cleared out later today. Now, I don't know if that was lawyer bravado or something like that, but he claims that apparently the court action. Now, I'm thinking to myself, in real life, that probably won't happen because the city's going to appeal it and nothing will happen that quick. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I get it.
Apparently, he's won a case against the city for just handing out money, which to me, if that's the case, then it blows up the whole reparations thing too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know what the difference would be in it, but I mean, who thinks that's? Can you imagine the conversations in Tashara Jones' office about which 500 people get that money?
Well, but once again, I mean, that's part of the whole thing. The whole thing is like, okay, this person got money and this person didn't. Well, no, hold on a minute. This person has a more of a hard luck story than the person that got the money.
Yeah,
how is that fair?
And that goes back to the whole reparations thing. And the idea that this, first of all, I remember, Brad, I think September is the new deadline. And they're totally going to meet that deadline, and they're totally not going to ask for even more money, I'm sure. But the idea that some cabal of people is going to decide who's a bigger victim, which person living in North Point or Walnut Park is a bigger victim than somebody living across the street. How are you going to determine that? Right.
Crazy stuff. Okay. Story that I've seen in a couple places, and to the point where I don't know what's going on with MSNBC. MSNBC is owned by Comcast, and Comcast is this big monstrous company that owns all sorts of entertainment stuff, obviously NBC and stuff like that. You would think they would try to reel in the MSNBC people, and I guess it's gotten to the point where they don't care, or maybe it's just to the point where it's like, hey, we'll let those MSNBC people.
Yeah, what happened now?
Okay. There's a story that's and here's the headline of the story. MSNBC primetime hosts incendiary coverage of the RNC. They're at the RNC, and Morning Joe, before we're and he's talking about that. Okay, now get this. MSNBC host Alex Wagner argued that the GOP's pick for Vice President J.D. Vance dropped, quote, Easter eggs of white nationalism by saying...
I saw this, but I didn't listen long enough to hear what those Easter eggs were, Brad.
I'm going like, okay, first off, Easter egg, if you're not familiar with that term, John, explain it.
Yeah, so it's the idea if you're watching a movie or reading a book or listening to a song, an Easter egg is like a little hidden gem where if you get the joke, you get the joke. But you have to look closely and listen closely. So in other words, what they're suggesting here is that in J.D. Vance's speech, he and his team hid little clues that were – I guess you could tie them to like the so-called dog whistle, Brad. But the idea that there's little gems in there that only a tiny amount of people will identify and know, yes, he's one of us. And let's give an example of this, Brad. In the olden days, people would say that people who were Masons would use secret language. Like because they're Masons, they'd say, if you met a car dealer and he said, I'm looking to give you a deal on the square, and you responded with some other sort of Mason term, then he knew he was dealing with a Mason and he'd give you a better deal. So that's kind of conspiratorial talk. You see what I mean, Brad?
I do exactly. You want to hear the exact quote?
I do want to hear it, yeah.
This is the exact quote from Alex Wagner. I just think the construction of this notion reveals a lot about someone who fundamentally believes in the supremacy of whiteness and masculinity, and it's couched in a sort of halcyon, revisitation of his roots, but is actually really revealing about what he thinks matters and who America is, and that America is a place for people with his shared Western background. Now, decode that, okay?
Well, I think it's anybody that says anything about, hey, I'm not embarrassed of where I'm from and I'm a white man, then you're going to be accused of white supremacy. Like, it's that simple, right? I don't think it's that overcomplicated.
Right. NBC's Reid has questioned whether Trump was actually shot with a bullet at his rally on Saturday. There's a whole bunch of these crazy nuts, and one of the crazy things they keep saying is the bullet hit the teleprompter and part of the screen exploded, and that's what Trump got hit in the ear with, which is not true because, once again, what about the picture that was taken by the New York Times, where in some of the websites you actually see the bullet circled. You see the bullet that just went through the president's, or the former president, hopefully future president. You just see the bullet that went through his ear fly by him. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I heard that was glass, though, Brad.
Okay.
It looks kind of shiny and clear to me.
So Reid is saying she's questioning whether he actually got shot with a bullet, and she's arguing that the president getting COVID-19 and recovering was the same thing as Trump surviving an assassination attempt.
It's the same thing. A case of the sniffles is the same thing as getting shot in the head.
Right. Here's her quote, okay? This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should be fine in a couple of days. Doesn't that convey exactly the same thing? That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to be really fatal to people his age. So if he does fine out of it and comes back and is able to do rallies, isn't that exactly the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay, once again, line up 100 people and say, okay, you're in room A. You can pick room B and room C. In room B, you're going to go up and shake hands with a man or a woman, whoever it is, a person who has COVID, and the person is going to talk to you and, at arm's length, and you can spend 20 seconds with that person, and then you can exit and you go home, okay? In room C, we're going to put you up against the wall, and we've got a bunch of guys from the NRA who are sighting in their deer rifles, and they're going to fire a .308 cartridge or .308 bullet within inches of your head. Matter of fact, it might come close to your head. It was going to hit your ear. Now, you have to pick which room. Which room do you want? And how many?
The bullet room, clearly.
Right. It's like, okay, Reid. Like COVID-19 is the same thing as an assassin's bullet going through your ear. I just don't get this stuff.
It's creative, though, Brad. And I don't mean to be flip about it, but it's pretty creative, don't you think? Like, if you're a Reid type, you have to tell yourself a story. You have to tell yourself a story to justify why you were supporting Joe Biden. And how quickly, though, will she turn on Joe Biden if Kamala is the nominee? How quickly will Reid turn on Joe Biden?
Okay. Have you ever listened to, and I know you do from time to time, I don't listen that much to it, but I listened to 93.3 yesterday in the afternoon.
Yeah, I do.
Who's the new guy? What's his name?
His name is Ryan Hite in the afternoon.
And what's always interesting to me is the names of the show on 93.3 on Tracy's station are all these apocalyptic names. It's called The Reckoning or something like that.
Oh, I think that's a good name.
The Reckoning?
Yeah, I think it's great. Hey, you know what? Because the liberals use that after St. George Floyd had his whole fentanyl incident. They said, we're having a racial reckoning. I think it's a case of Ryan Hite reclaiming that word for the right side.
Okay, now, who is Ryan Hite?
Ryan Hite, as we've discussed before when we talked about the launch of his show, a longtime Republican operative. He worked for Phyllis Schlafly for quite a while. Phyllis Schlafly's group. He also worked in Republican campaigns for quite a while.
Okay, so he's going on yesterday about how he knows for a fact that Biden's gone and his replacement's coming in and blah, 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 blah. He says it's a done deal, done deal, done deal. Do you think that's the case?
No, I'm not convinced. And in fact, I just think there's so much bad information coming out of everywhere and people making up stories and people dealing with half-truths. I'm entirely ignorant about what's going to happen.
Okay. Well, I mean, the crazy thing about it is that there's more and more. I mean, it died down last weekend after the assassination attempt, and it's ratcheted back up, this week starting Wednesday, where, Chucky Schumer comes out and essentially says he needs to go, and Adam Schiff said he needs to go, and all these people say he needs to go. And supposedly, this is what he's saying. What's his name? Ryan Hite? Was that the name you said?
Ryan Hite, yeah. Hite is his last name.
Okay, he claims that what's going to happen is Joe Biden's going to come out and say, okay, I'm going to pass the baton, but I'm not going to give it to Kamala. I'm going to open up the Democratic convention and let the convention decide who is my replacement.
I've heard that too. I've heard that theory too, Brad.
Right. Now, what do you think of that?
I find it hard to believe that Biden – I absolutely could see Biden saying I'm going to serve the rest of my term, but I'm not going to serve for re-election, and I endorse Kamala Harris. I can't see him turning his back on his VP pick.
Well, that's what I thought, and I thought that would immediately, especially the minority community, going like, I can't, both minority by women and by well, I mean,
she's not actually black. She's part Jamaican and then part Indian, but I get it. I mean, people think that she's black. They call her black.
Yeah, but the crazy part of that is I have a friend of mine who claims that vehemently claims she is black because the Jamaicans are black, but yet I know that Jamaicans sometimes do not refer to themselves as black. They refer to themselves as Jamaican. Isn't that sort of the deal that they...
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think it depends. It's semantics. But you know what? People consider her to be black, so she's black.
Right. And I'm going like, okay, whatever. But see, I think the problem is that here we're Friday, the RNC, the convention's over. I'm telling you, it's like, can you talk to anybody who is a dyed-in-the-wool Republican or even Republican or, leanings are conservative leanings, and they're not like pumped about what happened at the convention?
Yeah, I don't think, and I'm eternally pessimistic about electoral options. I think I'm conditioned to be that way. But I was never convinced that Trump was going to get elected until the debate, and then I was like, wow, he really could do this. And now I don't see a path. As long as Joe Biden is at the top of the Democrats' ticket, I don't see a path for Biden to get reelected.
Well, the problem still is when you look at these polls that come out, it still shows, well, the latest poll is it's tied. I'm going like, okay.
Sure. Yeah, right. But, I mean, we saw, hey, I think we all learned in 2016 how much faith to put in polls.
Well, yeah, there's a perfect example of that where everybody said that Hillary was the anointed one and she was going to win.
And all the experts, the 538s of the world and everybody who's so brilliant with their, stochastic predictions was way off.
Well, John, I will tell you this. In 2016, I had quite a few people ask me who were not necessarily as wrapped in politics as I was, and I'm not nearly as someone like you, obviously. But anybody who would ask me, I would say Trump's going to win, and they go like, "What? Trump's going to win?" And they would say, "Why is that?" I go, "I've never seen a grassroots around any candidate like Trump.
Yeah, tell your story about going downtown, Brad.
Well,
we could wrap with that.
I went to the when he was in town. He was down at the Peabody. I think it was the Peabody Opera House at the same time. I don't think it was. What's it now? It's called the
Stiefel or whatever.
Stiefel, whatever. And if you talk to Ed Golterman, he's still mad. It's the Kiel Opera House, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I registered. I went to get my ticket, and there's only 3,500 seats there. The line came out the door, went east on Market, and we're not talking a single file line. We're talking a line that was maybe like 5 or 6 people wide, went south on Tucker, then went west on 14th Street, out to 18th Street, came back around. So essentially, it was a mile of people waiting to get in, and there were estimates that if everybody who was standing in line had gotten into the theater, there would have been 35,000 people in the theater. And I don't doubt that. And I saw this for the first time. I thought to myself, this was March of 2016. I thought to myself, holy crap, I've never seen anything like this before. And that told me a lot about the fact that this was a true grassroots effort. And 9 times out of 10, those grassroots people are the ones that never end up being asked by the pollsters. I mean, would you sort of agree with me on that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, and professional pollsters and focus group people could go on for days about problems with the industry, but you're right. I mean, those people generally are not surveyed. But if you're, and it also goes to show, if you're willing to stand in line for an hour or more outside of a rally to see a candidate, you're definitely voting. You're definitely not going to shut up to your friends about how great your candidate is. You're actually out there doing the work.
Well, and remember they gave the example that when Trump came to town, that was deal at the Peabody Opera House, and yet when Hillary came to town, she was at some union hall and there were 250 people there, and you're going like, okay, there's a little bit of difference between the grassroots between Hillary and Trump. You know, I mean, it's just one of those things.
Going like standing outside in downtown St. Louis, you'd have to really love something to drive all the way, let's say, to Springfield, Illinois for it. Like, you'd have to be really committed to that business and that project to actually close the deal and make it happen, wouldn't you, Brad?
John, here he goes again, making fun of me.
I'm not making fun of you, Brad, because I'm praising you for your dedication. And I spend a lot of time teasing you and giving you a hard time. But you are quite dedicated to making everything you're involved with work, Brad.
I do my...
And it is for the betterment of all of us. I mean that.
Well, I will say this right up front, John. There's going to come a day, and it's going to be Monday, and I hopefully can be able to pull this off. And Monday will be a sort of a renaissance for me, a rejuvenation for me, a new beginning for me, and a lot of people to thank. And I shouldn't prematurely say this, but if I get it done on Monday, a lot of people to thank, including you, and hopefully if it gets done, which I hopefully think it will, there'll be a lot of good stuff on the other side. As a matter of fact,
well, you'll get a brand new, and you're getting a heart transplant. That's what we're telling everybody, right, Brad?
No, I'm actually buying a used car lot right next to Tracy's in Wentzville, and our radio.
And you know what? If Mike Kehoe doesn't win the governor's race, he could come work for you.
Right. And Tracy and I are going to be neighbors out in Wentzville on Veterans Memorial Parkway in our former used car lot building. So
what a beautiful end to your love story, Brad.
Right. Okay.
Hey, what will that be? July 22nd will be the day. What a beautiful day.
Okay, John, say goodbye.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Talk to you.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?